Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to Coffee Talk! So today, we're talking about crawlers. Dun. What are crawlers? Well, you may not have heard of them. You may have seen video footage that may or may not be real on these creatures. But to give you an idea, a crawler is an animal human hybrid looking creature. Some of its characteristics are, most obviously, its completely pale white skin, the fact that its face is and shape of head is humanoid, with the exception of there not being a visible nose nor ears nor any hair. It's completely hairless. And it has a mouth that you can't really see until they open it. And then it opens up wide from a way back hinged jaw, like half of its head opens up wide, and inside are many rows of jagged teeth. Dun. This creature, the crawler, is said to crawl around on all fours, but is capable of being a biped. When standing erect, the crawler is said to be in the neighborhood of 7 feet tall, but it prefers to scurry around on the ground. The creature's also said to have long, gnarly fingers, potentially in some cases ending in very sharp claws. The creature, its movement is the strangest thing about it. It creeps around on all fours, but it's capable of sudden and quick movement. And any video footage you see of it, you see it for a moment and then it suddenly disappears. It suddenly moves very quickly, more quickly even than a frightened animal. The speed of which this creature moves when startled or on retreat or attack is probably the most stunning thing about these tales. Now, if you've never heard of the crawler, it could be that you just dismissed it as a movie monster, because in some ways it's either based on or related to a purely fictional creation of the internet, one of the first internet monsters, called the Rake, or a rake. The Rake was something that was created on 4chan. A group of people got together in the first incarnation of this monster they were collectively inventing on this message board. Had a row of 3 eyes, or in some cases a center eye and 2 regular eyes. And the terrifying nature of this creature they created made its way into movie magic in the movie The Rake. Now, these crawlers, however, are a cryptid that seems to be gaining traction with online tales, some questionable video, and trail cam footage of these creatures. And that's what many of you may have seen, is some of these creepy trail cam videos of some kind of humanoid animal cross creature with legs and arms that bend in the wrong direction, creeping along the ground and sneaking up on people, and they catch it on trail cam. Now, don't confuse this with skinwalkers. I was confused at first. I thought skinwalkers, crawlers, rakes were all the same thing. But skinwalkers are actually very different. We could do a video on those. Skinwalker Ranch. These tend to be, some people believe, aliens. Other people believe they're humans that have been mutated via extreme dedication to evil and black magic, till the point where they become so corrupted they begin to change physical form. The traditional Native American skinwalker is a shapeshifter capable of appearing as an animal or a bird. And these are very much witches who do this through supernatural means. This is very different from the crawler that's being reported in eyewitness accounts. And so what came first, the myth or the cryptoid, right? The cryptid. It was an animal creature first, or was it a myth first created on the internet? Well, when you get deeply into the discussion of what makes a crawler, the pale skin, the lack of any hair, the emaciated, skinny appearance of the thing, the speed at which it moves, and the way in which it moves, you start getting reports that predate the internet, eyewitness accounts that predate the creation of the rake story, the rake creature on 4chan. And one of the things that I find very interesting is the way that it's reported to move. And some of the video footage that I saw that are most believable, some of the trail cam footage, has this creature moving at such a rapid pace from no movement to gone in a flash, in a blink of an eye, much quicker than even a frightened animal. And a white-tailed deer can get moving fast when that white tail goes up, right? But the speed at which this thing moves, it's almost faster than the eye. I think one of the most compelling stories comes out of Canada. And this is a story of a man who was traveling down a deserted highway at night, way back in the Canadian outback woods, right, in the mountains. And he encounters this creature at night who aggressively chases his truck. And he said that this thing ran next to his truck, keeping up pace with his truck as he tried to escape it. And it was threatening and menacing and making eye contact. That is one of the things that is common amongst all of these stories about crawlers, is that they do maintain an eerie, frightening eye contact. They're not like an animal that looks at you and cuts its eyes away. It stares you down. Now, typically, most of the stories of crawlers, apart from the horror movie version, the rake version, these creatures tend to be non-violent unless they're cornered, that they are often caught watching people. There is footage of this creature, apparently, whether it's doctored, whether it's completely CGI, or whether it's a legitimate video. There is a crawler-type creature video on the internet of it sneaking up on an elk, like it was hunting an elk. Now, in that most believable story of the man who was pursued by this creature and outran it in his pickup truck, this guy was haunted by this, and he regretted not going back and looking for the tracks to better identify what this creature was that he saw. And he had to go out of town. He went out of town for a few days. He came back. There had not been any weather or any rain that would have washed away the tracks, and he was still haunted by this creature. So he finally got up the nerve to go out and search for the tracks during daylight to the area where he remembered seeing the creature. And he did find right there clear tracks. There are photos of these tracks available on the internet with a little bit of searching. And what he found was that these tracks seemed to be following a wolf pack. That he found wolf tracks, and then laid over the top of it were these cryptid tracks. In this creature, this creature's tracks were three-toed. They had only 3 fingers. There's a lot of 3-fingered mythology that has to do, or theories that have to do with aliens having 3 fingers. So is this thing people are seeing, is it a figment of their imagination? Is it a spirit demon of some sort? Is it a cryptid? What are they seeing? Now, one of the things that the wilderness sightings of the crawler have in common is they're typically found where caves or mining has been real prevalent. And so one theory is that these are cave-dwelling creatures. We also have some very frightening and convincing video that comes out of sewer workers who have encountered a crawler creature in the dark in some of these sewers. Once again, that sudden ability to move quickly is one of the defining characteristics of a crawler. As much as they call them a crawler because they crawl around on all fours and are capable of sprinting high speeds on all fours, that even though they call them crawlers, they're not slow at all. Now, when you examine the eyewitnesses and you start to try to paint a picture of what this creature looks like, moves like, behaves like, one of the most closely related physicalities to a crawler in a known animal is a 3-toed sloth. The big difference is a 3-toed sloth is notoriously slow. It's the next slowest animal to a turtle, that they take forever to get from point A to point B. But they have the extra elongated arms and the shorter back legs, and they do scurry about on all fours. Because they're three-toed sloths, they have three long toes with claws on the end, along a elongated forearm. The forearm looks very much like a lemur or some kind of ape or gorilla, in the fact that their arms are like an orangutan. Their arms are longer than their back legs. So when you examine a sloth, you think maybe these people are seeing a sloth, especially since the vast majority of crawler sightings are occurring in Australia, with a significant number being found in the central part of the United States, from the deep south all the way up through central Canada. And so, could it be a sloth? Well, sloths move too slow. This sudden, rapid movement. And the description of these bodies looking emaciated, having some muscle tone, but the muscles being long and spindly, and not the kind of muscles you find in relation to any kind of hominoid or, what's the word I'm looking for? Bipedal ape. They're definitely not in any way physically related to Sasquatch or Bigfoot. They have long, spindly, bony arms with muscles, but the muscles are, that's all there is like tendons, right? That's the description. And I can include some pictures, but most of them that are out there are pictures that are created through CGI graphics, and most of them are related to the rake theory, the rake monster that was created by this group of creepy folks on 4chan right around 10 years ago. So, could these be demons? Many people who encounter the crawlers, including the individual who tracked this crawler that he saw up in Canada, he felt that it had a demonic spirit, a demonic presence. There was something inherently evil about the thing. It wasn't just a weird-looking creature. It had ominous and evil intent. And this is something that goes along with all of these sightings: an intense fight or flight response, an intense fear, basically on a spiritual level. Are these people seeing demons incarnate? I have this theory that there is a physicality to demons, that the demons that I and other exorcists, if you didn't know that, I'm an exorcist, I and other exorcists encounter the spiritual projection, or the what's the word I'm looking for? The telepathic projection of a creature that does have physicality. I do believe that demons have bodies. Is this what crawlers are? Well, the fact that they're found in remote locations makes me lean more towards cryptid and away from the concept of demons. Demons tend to be drawn to and feed upon emotionally, and I think if they were here in the flesh, they would actually feed on us physically. But they tend to be drawn to where more people are. Where this crawler cryptid creature is one that stays to itself. And the most aggressive footage you see is when people pursue this thing into its lair. They typically are found in caves and lava tubes and abandoned mines, culverts, tunnels, that sort of thing. And so that would explain the pale white skin, because they can't really be a creature that goes about during daylight hours or even goes about at night with that white color. White is very much restricted to animals who live in a polar place, like a polar bear. Polar bears are white because they're camouflaged to match their surroundings of the Arctic. And so the pale nature of these creatures suggests that it can't be something that lives above ground. Otherwise, A, would be spotted more, B, it would be prey to other creatures, and if it was a hunter, it couldn't hunt successfully with a pure white color that way in a non-Arctic region. So one would suggest then that the only other reason an animal might be white is if it lives underground, devoid of any sunlight. Now, have you ever seen a mole? In a lot of ways, these crawlers resemble in the way that they move, in the way that they're built, in their skin color, the way that their claws are shaped. They resemble, in my opinion, most closely to any animal I can think of is a mole. Moles have this pale white skin. Moles, I believe their eyes aren't even properly developed because they live underground in total darkness. And you never see one unless it comes out and dies or is killed or shot or whatever. I know I've shot a few moles myself, and they're creepy little suckers. Or your cat comes dragging one up. The thing about a mole, though, is they're typically less than 6 inches in length, right? They're not 6 or 7 foot tall creatures. Are these creatures somewhat like a mole? Have they developed their characteristics because they live underground over centuries or thousands of years? Are they part of our evolutionary chain? If so, why do we not see them more often? Why are they just now appearing? And one theory is this is just the collective imagination of people who have glommed onto the concept of the rake. Now, the only other mythical creature that you can compare these crawlers to might be the Wendigo spirit. A Wendigo is according to some Native American lore, Wendigo was at one time a human being who became so selfish and self-centered that they saw other humans as food, and that they began to engage in cannibalistic behavior, which transformed them emotionally, spiritually, and physically into a hairless creature. Now, as far as I know, Wendigos aren't this pale, sickly white, and they tend to be more fearsome, more animal-like. But they are mostly hairless with just a few wild hairs growing on their head. And they do resemble humans in the face for sure, because according to Indian lore, they're humans that have been transformed through their own evil behavior and their own engaging in forbidden activity of being cannibals. There's an element of these crawlers that also makes a person think about zombies. What about zombies? Zombies are pale creatures that are aggressive, want to eat human flesh, cannibalistic, not unlike the Wendigo creature or the crawlers, or even the online fable of the rake. And one might think that the rake is based in Wendigo mythology to some degree, that that's what they had in their mind when they created this creature, because cannibalism is a part of the rake behavior. They eat human flesh. So what are people seeing? Are they seeing some kind of cryptid? Are they having some kind of horror movie based hallucination? Is it all a hoax? Are they lying? Because there's hundreds and hundreds of these eyewitness accounts that come from all over the world. I can't tie the crawler directly to any Native American lore. They have similarities with a lot of different mythical creatures. But people are seeing something, and or there's a lot of hoaxing going on. I imagine it's a little bit of both. With the advent of computer generated images and Photoshop on steroids in video format today, you can create just about anything on your own personal computer. And so some of these trail cam shots most definitely are fabricated, but the law of averages says they can't all be. And I've listened to many of these crawler eyewitness firsthand accounts, and they seem to be very believable. I find it interesting that the man in Canada who had the one run alongside him and became obsessed with it went back with a friend, took pictures of these 3 clawed tracks, and tied them to the wolf pack. And if you know anything about animals that follow wolf packs, they're scavengers, because wolves will make a big kill on an elk or something as a pack, eat till they're full, and then wander off and leave a lot of material behind. And scavengers typically will follow wolf packs. And so you have this concept that maybe these crawlers are scavengers and meat eaters, but they rather than hunt, they follow the hunters and clean up afterwards. So what do I think it is, right? Before delving into this subject, I thought it was based on the rake. I thought it was a made-up horror movie monster. I was unaware of these rash of sightings. I was unaware that these sightings predate the creation of the rake on 4chan, and some of these stories might have been influential in the minds of the people who invented this monster, the rake, and therefore crawlers might be an actual cryptid. One theory is they're aliens. In a very recent video where a man caught an alien on the roof of his house on camera, if you look at that, it looks less like a gray and more like a rake or a crawler. And rakes or crawlers have made their way into a lot of video games as well. And I promise you, watching and playing video games for hours on end can imprint on your psychic and do things to your psyche and do things to your brain. They can make you make those monsters that are mythical or completely made up, and they can make them very real to somebody when you spend enough time watching them. And so that could be influencing some of the viewers. But a lot of the folks that are reporting seeing these crawlers in the wilderness are outdoorsy wilderness type people who don't spend time on the internet. A lot of the crawler firsthand accounts and stories come from YouTube channels that are about completely something else. But yet they had this encounter and they put it on their YouTube channel with a lot of other stuff that is their personal hobby or their passion in life, which has nothing to do with cryptids. These eyewitness accounts are not coming from cryptid type hunters or people that are looking for answers. They are simply accounts of people who saw something they could not explain. And the sudden, quick movement of these creatures is very much, when they're moving fast, they are equated to spiders. Because the limbs are longer than they ought to be and the elbows stick way up in the air on both sides, because of the length of their body, they're capable of jumping great distances, and they move like a spider unless they're seen moving slow. And when they're moving slower still, their movement is serpentine or snake-like in appearance. So this could be aliens, right? We do know, I believe that if you watch this channel, you think that it's a demonic plot to allow demons to come to Earth and interact with us under the guise of being aliens, or if you believe like I do, you believe that aliens and demons are the same thing. That what is a demon but a creature not from this Earth or this existence. They could be interdimensional beings that started coming through when CERN went online. That when they opened this door, some whistleblowers have said that when they opened up this Stargate, that creatures from another dimension started pouring in and saying, "Thank you for inventing this, so we can come invade your your planet and your existence, your dimension." So they could be interdimensional creatures. They could be aliens from another planet, or they could be a cryptid, or just a figment of people's imaginations. Don't. If I had to settle on one theory, here's my theory. They seem very much like an under-earth dwelling creature, a cave creature. One needs to go no further than the Lord of the Rings to see a crawler represented in that film in the form of Gollum. He lived underground and in the dark and in the shadows and only coming out at night for so long that it changed his physical appearance and his behavior. He started at the beginning, he was a hobbit, but because of the him protecting the ring and becoming so reclusive and living in caves and underground and only coming out at night, he got this pallid, white, pale skin. And his hair fell out except for wispy parts. Did they base that on the concept of a crawler? Did they base that on the concept that of these cryptids that have been talked about even in certain Native American tribes? With a lot of variation, though. And the Wendigo, in some cases, resembles a crawler, but in other cases, it's not at all. And then what about the vampire mythology? Thanks to Anne Rice and Bela Lugosi and people like Bram Stoker, we have this concept of the vampire being a suave, debonair, attractive man of wealthy means who feeds on blood at night and only comes out at night. And that's a variation of the original Nosferatu, the original vampire uh, concept, is more like a crawler. It's a bloodthirsty creature of the night who is pale skinned like the dead, who is emaciated from being hungry all the time and thirsting and living off of blood. And instead of having the two fangs that magically come out like a snake when they're ready to feed, as in the modern movies, the old original mythology, they're toothy boogers with many rows of sharp, jagged teeth. And so I start to see the greatest similarity of crawlers to the ancient vampire mythology. And what were vampires but humans who made a deal with the devil and decided to cross over to the dark side until it changed them physically? Now, what in the animal kingdom does a crawler most resemble? And in my opinion, it resembles the sloth, the three-toed, like the tracks found by the most credible eyewitness, and the nature of the arms being very long, like a lemur or a sloth. It makes me think that if this thing is an animal, it's a subterranean marsupial that has adapted to living underground. And occasionally they would find their way out, just like occasionally a sick mole will wander out of its hole. Otherwise, it's got to be captured by a cat or poisoned or something. They have to have a reason to leave their mole hole. So if this is a sloth of some kind, a giant sloth, a giant three-toed, under the earth dwelling sloth, then what would cause them to come out now? What would cause these sightings to be much greater than they have been in the past? The obvious answer, it's a made-up monster and it's part of the collective consciousness and people are seeing it because they saw it in a movie or a video game. And however, there's another cryptid example of why these under the earth dwelling creatures might be boiling to the surface. Boiling is the answer here. That's the key phrase, boiling, because here's my theory: that this is a creature that always existed. It existed outside of human knowledge, except in rare occasions, and that's because it dwelled primarily and completely in the cavernous underbelly of the earth, in the cave structures, in the lava tubes, and they were able to exist there. But the earth is warming up. I don't believe in global warming being man-made. My theory is global warming is a result of the volcanic pressures and magma rising to the surface, heating up the surface of the earth and affecting our atmosphere. And so, therefore, if this heating of the earth because of volcanic activity, if that's a thing and that's happening, that might be what's driving the crawlers to the surface. It's just too hot down there. It gets hotter by the day. And they are forced to come out at night to escape the heat that's building up from their underground layers. Don't. Underground mole people, marsupial. The big question, are they flesh eaters? The resemblance of their face to humans is, I think, another thing that's very interesting. Every animal's got a muzzle except for human beings. Human beings and I guess reptiles are the only animals that don't definitively have clear protruding muzzles. The nature of the muscles, by the way, of these crawlers also I find very interesting because they have great speed. They're agile, but they appear very frail. If you know something about muscles, you know there's two types of muscles that a bodybuilder can build. He can build slow twitch muscles or quick twitch muscles. Slow twitch muscles are big muscles that are made for moving heavy objects, moving, rocks and trees and barbells, right? But the little quick muscles that you associate with a martial artist or a runner are thin and have more tendons and are like hardened and attached to the tendons. And that's because their primary reason for being is to move the limb quickly. So the nature of these smaller muscles, almost non-existent muscles on these frail looking crawler creatures could be a representation of some very quick twitch muscles. Quick twitch muscles make you fast. And that is one of the things I found most interesting about all the footage, is how quickly these things can move. Way quicker than an animal. So what do you think they are? Here's what I think they are. I think this creature always existed underground, whether it's linked in some way to humans, which explains the lack of a muzzle, or whether they're some kind of marsupial is my guess. You know, prior to modern times, there were a lot of marsupials. There were marsupial wolves that recently went extinct, to the point where some of the earliest film footage has some of these remaining marsupial wolves that you can see in on film, because they filmed them before they went completely extinct. That there, at one time, the Earth's population was mostly marsupial, raising their young in a bag, like a pouch, like a kangaroo, or a possum is another marsupial. And so is a sloth. The three toes of a three-toed sloth line up with this creature. The physicality of it looks like a sloth. Sloths do have more of a muted muzzle, and therefore can appear more human-like, especially if they weren't covered in hair. So is this a hairless, underground, mole-type marsupial that is boiling out of the earth because of this warming of the planet, because of this volcanic activity, which is making it hotter and hotter underground, to where they have to come out into the cool evening breeze to cool off from their environment? Will we start seeing more of these as this volcanic activity increases in our world? And that could explain why they weren't around so much before, and now they seem to be everywhere. Are people crazy? Is this just made up? Is it based on the rake and movie horrors and video games? Or is this a real cryptid? Or is it an alien living and hunting in our wilderness? You know, it would be very tempting to aliens who come from an overpopulated planet to come to Earth and think there's enough room for all of us, because we see our cities as crowded. But if you've taken a trip across country recently, you know that there are hundreds and hundreds of miles where you can drive on paved roads and not encounter a gas station or even a farm. I remember on this most recent trip coming back, it seemed like we would never get out of this deep, deep desert wilderness that we crossed, coming across parts of Nevada and Utah and Colorado, places like that. That this immense wilderness to an alien would look like there's plenty of room for all of us, and they might attempt to live here and just stay separate from us. So, is this an alien? Is it a cryptid, marsupial, mole-type creature that's being boiled out because of the lava activity? Is this collective madness based on fiction? Or is it just a giant hoax? Tell me what you think in the comments section. If you enjoy these videos, please help this channel out. I don't work. This is my full-time job. 2/3 of my videos are basic Christian ministry and spiritual warfare videos, and I delve into the unknown during the coffee talks. But if you like this video format, if you're a fan of the channel, if you're a follower of the Sheep Pen, please leave me a donation by clicking on the PayPal link or the Cash App link, or you can send me something directly in person to my P.O. box. Either way, I hope for your support. I pray daily for your continued support, because I think I'm fulfilling my life calling by doing this and talking about the things that I know about and speculating about the things that I don't. All right, we'll see you next time on Coffee Talk.